Okay friends, it's time to get started on our job. One of the first things we need to do is safely raise and support the front of the vehicle so the wheel's off the ground. After that, we're going to remove our center cover here and then all 5 of our lug nuts so we can remove the wheel. Now that the wheel's off, let's continue on by removing our cotter pin that comes right across here. Remove this right here. Set that aside. Use your 30mm socket. Remove your axle nut. Next, you would want to use a hammer and punch. Come right in the center right here and drive this free. Now we're just going to create a little bit of slack up along this area. Go ahead and remove this 10mm headed bolt right there. This bracket should come free. Remove this 12mm bolt. There we are. Now we're going to try to get this out of the way. Let's remove our 2 bolts. Set this aside. Now let's move underneath the control arm here. You're going to find a 17mm headed bolt and then 2 nuts. Remove the bolt and then your nuts. Next, I'm just going to use a pry bar. I'm going to try to pry down on this so I can separate the ball joint from the lower control arm. Right up and in between here. Separate that. And we're just going to gently pull this out of here. Okay, so now that we have all that out of the way, the next thing we want to do is use our 19mm socket. We're going to remove this bolt right here. There's one over here. And then there's another one all the way in the back that goes straight up and down. Let's remove them all. Socket off of there. There's one. Start pulling this away from the vehicle. Try to slide it out of here. Just got to get the right angle on these. There it is, friends. Now, before we go ahead and start installing our brand new control arm, let's make sure we clean up the threads on all of our bolts. To start getting this in, let's start with the rearward hockey puck bushing here. This is generally the hardest part. You just essentially want to start sliding it in as smooth as possible, line up those holes, and then we'll put the bolt through. So next I'm going to use my socket and an extension. I'm just going to try to use that to be able to line up this bolt as close as possible. Let's get that tapped in there. And now we'll just take that upper nut there. You can see that it has this little flippy-do. We essentially want to go ahead and put it in just like this, and we're going to have the flippy-do facing right up against here. That's going to hold it so it can't move around on us. Just get that lined up with the bolt. Now we'll start in the bolt. Snug it up. Now let's carefully get that control arm up and into position here. We'll start in those 2 bolts as well. We're going to use the shorter of the 3 bolts right here in the forward one. Now one of the long ones. Now we can bottom these out. Now we can torque all these bolts to 152 foot-pounds. Now we can take the axle, we'll go ahead and slide it right into the bearing. Now we're just going to carefully pry down on this control arm. We'll line up our ball joint studs with the corresponding holes. Let's start on both of the nuts for this. Let's insert the bolt. Now we're just going to go ahead and bottom these out. After that, we'll torque these to 90 foot-pounds. Going to take this, line up that hole right there. We'll get our bolt in there, snug it up. Let's get this lined up. Got our ABS wire right on there. The brake hose lined up as well. Get that bolt through there. Now we can get our plastic shield on here. We're just going to take it so this lip comes behind this area. Slide this lip up and behind as well. Line up those bolt holes, start in both of your bolts, and then snug them up. Time for the axle nut. We'll go ahead and put it on here. We're just going to bottom this out. We'll get it closer to the ground, and then we'll torque it to manufacturer specification. Now to torque this, either you can have a second person inside the vehicle that's going to be able to hold on the brake hard enough so this won't spin, or you can just use a nice long pry bar coming across these studs down to the ground to hold this for you. Then we'll continue on to torquing this to 217 foot-pounds. Now it's going to be time for the axle nut lock and our cotter pin. You can see that it has slots that go through it for the cotter pin. You want to make sure that it lines up so you can go ahead and put it right through the axle. Slide that on through. Watch your eyes. Let's get the wheel on here. Now at this point, we're going to go ahead and start on all of our lug nuts, bottom them out, get the wheel on the ground, and then we'll torque the lug nuts to 76 foot-pounds. Torqued. Go ahead and take this, pop it on there.